Hi, welcome back to Ammosmith. We're going to do something a little different. We're going to work with some factory ammunition. We tested some with the 308 in our last video with the HK and the bolt action. But today I want to look at some M855/SS109 and see if we can't find a brand that's offered that gives us the accuracy we want. What we're looking for is MOA or less. So I have 4 samples here. We have Israeli M855. We had the PMC X-TAC M855, which is made in South Korea. We have the offering from Lake City, also known as Federal. And we have some Danish. The Danish stuff is not green tipped, and although it is steel core, I'm anxious to see what the accuracy is on it. The biggest problem with the M855 with the accuracy, I believe, is the multiple cores in there. There's a steel tip in the front and a lead core in the back, and that may not be the only contributing factor to the inaccuracy of this round, but I do believe that the jacket material is the main culprit. Consistency in jacket thickness is critical to an accurate round, as we all know. But, you know, a lot of this stuff, like the Lake City, normally when you buy the Lake City stuff, it'll say like XM855, and the X stands for experimental. The PMC stuff isn't usually too bad. I haven't tried the IMI yet. Now, I have shot some of the Danish, and it works pretty good. So what I want to do is weigh them out, and total cartridge weight and consistency, see what they weigh in between cartridges. And then I want to put them on my runout gauge, because that's where a lot of our accuracy problems can come from. And once I locate my bullet pulling die, we're going to pull some of the slugs and we're going to weigh them. And then we're going to eventually get out to the range and put them through my precision AR, which has a Lil Jet 24-inch barrel on there. And we should be able to see, the difference between the brands and which one's the most accurate. The Danish stuff comes in these like little blister packs, which isn't bad. Usually they're 50 per, but I've already shot 20 out of this. It's really clean, and I don't remember whether or not this is Berdan primed or not. We'll find out. So let's take a look. As you can see, there's no green tip on her. However, don't let that fool you. The steel core in this is a dead giveaway, and there's no 55 grain that I know of out there that's steel core. Now the Russian makes stuff like Wolf, Tula, Silver Bear will make some 5.56 with a gilded steel jacket. And don't let that fool you as being steel core. It's just a mild steel jacket. So, boom. So you can see the magnet sticks to it quite nicely, and it seems like it has a pretty decent size penetrator. It goes almost all the way down to the ogive here, which isn't bad. But if we go down to where the neck of the case is, it stops pulling out, so we know that the jacket material itself is copper. In comparison, we have the IMI systems M855. This is probably some of the more expensive stuff, although it does seem to compare quite reasonably with the Lake City as far as cost goes. What I'm interested in is the quality. Now, quality is everything to a shooter, especially a precision shooter. So again, it has a steel tip, and it goes to about the same distance, maybe a little less than a Danish, but yet again, it's still spec'd out as M855. Okay, here's the X-Tac from PMC. It's also green tip. And it has a steel tip in it too. They all seem to, this one seems to be a little bit longer than the Israeli one, but I've had good luck with these. They're decently accurate. They're not super accurate, but you know, for what most people use it for, is just fine. And then we have the Federal or Lake City, basically same thing. We have a steel tip in it, but look, the steel tip is only about from here up, where on the other ones the steel tip went down towards the cantilever as far as the magnet is concerned. Doesn't seem to pull on as much as the other ones. So this might have a different type of alloy for the penetrator. So next thing I want to do is weigh these. Oh, one thing I forgot to tell you. On the Danish ones, it has a plastic stripper clip, which I kind of like, because you could just pop them off like that, which is kind of nice. Or put them on, just like that. And these are handy. Although the loading machines, these don't fit very well in the stripper clip guides that come with the NATO steel stripper clip guides, but these are nice if you're like a hand loader, or you just want to pop them off one at a time instead of pulling them all off. It's quite easy. So let's get the runout gauge set up and the scale set up, and we'll start weighing these out. Well, I'll weigh 5 at a time just to see what the variation is between each bullet. What we're looking for is consistency and weight. And what the consistency and weight is going to tell us is not so much the powder. The powder is usually almost identical. They're really good about the powders they use. They use a ball powder, so it meters really well. On these, what we're looking for is the overall weight that makes a difference, which is going to be the bullet and the cartridge case together. The cartridge case being close to each other or identical to each other is going to fairly well determine whether the internal case capacity is going to be uniform. It's not a dead giveaway. It's not, you know, an absolute, but it does help. All right, got our scale zeroed out, and we're going to start with the Danish stuff. Get it off here. Go. Oops. Took off one too many. So we're going to weigh out 5 and see how they weigh out in comparison to each other. Usually, the average, the military stuff weighs more overall, you know, for the same typical bullet weight. So whether it's 55 grain commercial or 55 grain military, the military usually weighs more because the case is a little heavier. So these are the M855 or SS109. Usually run around 180 grains. 190. 8. Seems a little heavier. Alright, he's going to weigh about 187 grains. First one. See what the next one does. About the same. A little lighter. It's about about the same. About half a grain off, a little less. A little more, but it's probably about 7/10 of a grain off. Really not bad. The one thing about buying surplus ammunition is you're buying surplus ammunition. This is not stuff designed to, you know, print half-inch groups. Well, that was really light. Get this guy down to, what is this? 185. So we went from 187 to 185, so it's about 2 grains maximum spread. And this guy goes back up to what? 187 grains. Not too bad. 2 grain maximum difference between the two. Not bad for surplus. All right, next one we're going to look at is going to be the Lake City. All right, the Lake City. When I bought this, it was labeled XM855, so it was experimental and it was rejected for whatever reason by the military. And that one's fairly light, so it's still in the 180 grain class. Let's go to 185. 186 maybe? Yep, 186 grains. So that's the first one. A little lighter, but a half a grain lighter. 185 and a half, I'm going to guess. Most of the weight variation, no, that's quite a bit. That's almost a grain less. Most of your weight variation is going to be in the cartridge case itself and not so much in the powder or the projectile, although the projectiles do vary quite a bit sometimes depending on who's making them. That was way light. About a grain lighter. Not as much of a spread as the Danish. The Danish ammunition they charge you a premium for is pretty expensive. So yeah, Lake City's not too bad. It's close. It's within a grain of each other. So next up is going to be the Israeli stuff. All right. The Israeli stuff. We're going to keep the scale about 185 and a half. And I bumped it and moved a 1/10 of a grain over. All right. First one. Yeah, 185 and a half. Right on. They're real close. They're all within the ballpark of each other, which ain't bad. This one over here. He does. He's about a grain lighter, so he's lighter. So that's about 2 grain difference, about the same as the Danish. Really, in downrange, it's going to be the projectile and the charge. It's going to have the most effect. And I'm guessing that the variances in this are going to mostly be the cartridge case instead of the projectile. Because we're wearing the primer, the powder, the case, and the projectile. That's not too bad. all within a grain, 2 grains of each other. So let's move on to the PMC M855 and see what it does. Okay, the PMC X-Tac. So 185.5. You know, for 4 different loads of the same type of ammunition in 4 different countries, this is pretty impressive, I think. It's 185 even. About 184.7. $185.5. PMC stuff seems pretty consistent. Oh, until we get to there, it's really heavy, and then we're at 186, and a little bit, let's get exact. 186.4. Yep. So that was almost a grain and a half heavier than the other 3, and the last one is about 186 grains. So there was a grain and a half difference in extreme weight variation on this. So not too bad. Not too bad at all. Now let's see what the run out looks like. I'm kind of curious about that too. Okay, let's go ahead and run the Danish stuff on the run out gauge. Oops, that was my fault there. Actually, the run out's pretty good on this one. Not too bad. All right, number 2. Number 2 is really good. Let's see what number 3 says. Yeah, number 3 is not too bad. More than I'd like. Number 4. Number 4 is good. Let's see what number 5 does. That's impressive. Well, the Danish stuff seems pretty good as far as surplus ammunition goes. I can't complain. All right. So next is going to be Lake City stuff. All right, Lake City. This stuff is marked 2012. All right. That's about as much as the worst one on the Danish stuff. That first one, let's do number 2 now. That one's fairly impressive. Now just bear in mind, this is just a sampling of 5 out of this. I have quite a bit of this stuff. Ooh, that one's kind of off. I'm going to come back to that one because I can actually see the tip of the bullet going. What we got here? Yeah, you know, the Lake City stuff is pretty off, but this one's way off. I want to zoom in on this so you guys can see. Keep your eye on the very tip of the bullet here. Right here. I want you to see how it is out of round. Of the 5 I just sampled, this is the worst one. I don't know if this is the worst it gets or what, but see that? It's barely detectable to the naked eye, but on the meter, you can actually see the wobble. And that means I can see it with my naked eye just looking at it. So that was the last one of the 5 seems to be the worst. Okay, now for the Israeli military industries, the IMI-855. Not bad. Seems a little choppy as far as the needle, but other than that, it seems to be fairly consistent. I said that before and has some stuff that's run way out. Oh, yep, just like that one. Still, not bad. I mean, all this stuff is very acceptable for, you know, whether you're doing a 3-gun match, just plinking around, but for like long range precision, well, we'll find out once we put these on paper, because it's really hard to say until we actually put it through a quality rifle with a quality barrel on it. But the IMI seems pretty consistent. All right, up next is the PMC. All right, let's see what the PMC does. A little wild. Well, of the 3 or 4, actually, I'm sorry, the PMC, this one's not bad, has had the most run out of the 4 we're sampling. Oh yeah. Although the Lake City did have pretty wide one that was really bad. Okay, so the next step is take this stuff to the range and try it out. One of the other things I want to do too is I want to try the Russian stuff, either the Tula, the Wolf, any of the steel case stuff, Silver Bear. I want to try out all 3 offerings, or how many offerings they have in the 62 grain, and just to see. You just don't know.